Okay, now we're starting with number 83, and this is coming from chapter 10, which is the percent and consumer math section. So the first thing that you need to be able to do is to change a fraction as a percent. And so you are going to take the numerator and divide it by the denominator. And then when you take 2 divided by 5, you're going to get a decimal, 0.4, which then you're going to have to multiply by 100. And that's where a lot of you made your mistakes on the test, is that you forgot to multiply by 100. And so that is going to give you your percentage of 40%. If you have a decimal as a percent, you can think that you're multiplying that number by 100 or moving the decimal 2 places to the right. So I would just come over here and that would become 65.8%. Writing a percent as a decimal, you will drop the percent sign and move your decimal 2 places to the left. So 51.3% becomes 0.513. Now, when we're doing application problems, you want to think of that is over of equals the percent over 100. And then we're going to cross multiply. So 25%, that number, and I'm going to come down here so I have more room, that number is going to go over 100. So we drop the percent sign and just write that number over 100. It says of 40, that goes on the bottom, is what number? So we are going to take 40 times 25 and then divide it by 100. And so that one's number 86, and that's going to give us 10, okay? Now in number 87, it says, what is the percent? So that's where the variable goes. Blank equals blank over 100. We don't know what the percent is. And it says of 140 is 37.8. So this time we will multiply 37.8 times 100 and then divide it by 140. And so that's going to give us 27%. And then the last one, we're looking for the bottom number of, it says blank equals blank over 100. And it says 21 is 6% of what number? So we take 21 times 100, then divide it by 6, and that gives us 350, okay? Now, if we're trying to figure out a percentage of a given one, and this was one of the problems that you had on your test where you had to figure out the percentage of niacin in the cereal that was given. It says they sold 5 raffle tickets with a goal of selling 30. So their goal, the whole number that they want to sell is 30, but the part that they've already sold is 5. So you would do blank over blank is 100. You're looking for that percentage. You've sold 5, but you want to sell a total of 30. And so then we would take 5 times 100 and divide it by 30, and that will give us 16.7%. It says round to the nearest tenth, which means 1 decimal place, 16.7%, okay? Continuing into chapter 10 with our interest formulas, you need to make sure that your time is in years. So we're going to have to convert 3 months out of 12 months, which is going to be a nice decimal of 0.25. And so we are using simple interest. The other thing I'm going to change is 7% as a decimal without the percent sign. So the simple interest that's earned, 61,600 times 0.07 times 0.25 comes out to be $1,078. Okay? And that's all they want you to do is just find the annual interest rate. Now, in the next one, you're going to think of that pi that we do. So we draw a circle, and then we have our interest on top, and then we've got our three sections: principal, rate, and time. So in the first one, we are missing rate, okay? So I am going to write that rate is going to be my interest divided by my principal times my time. And again, time has to be in years, and it is. So I'm going to take, and I'm going to come over here, I'm going to take the interest of $720, and I'm going to divide it by 2,400 times 4. And then, because this I'm looking for a rate, I am going to have to multiply that by 100 so that I can change it into a percentage. So when I do that, it says round to the nearest hundredth when necessary, which is 2 decimal places. And so this comes out to be 7.5%. Now the next one is the same, except that they give you time in months. So you're going to have to do your interest of $90.49 divided by your principal, $62.05, times 5 divided by 12, okay? And so once you get that number, you will have to multiply it by 100, and that's going to come out to be 3.5%. Now, number 93, we are looking for the principal. So for the principal, you are going to have the principal is your interest divided by your rate as a decimal and your time in years. So I'm going to take $117.65. I'm going to divide it by 0.04, which is my 4% as a decimal, times 90 divided by 360. Okay, and so as I do that, now because we're talking about money, we want to round it to the nearest cent, which means 2 decimal places. Okay, and so just make sure that once you hit the division bar, that you put parentheses and just type in 0.04 times 90 divided by 360. And that should come out to be, that should come out to be $11,765 for my principal. And then the last one is time. And so with time, my formula is going to be my interest divided by my principal times my rate. So $2,170.53 divided by 12,403 times 0.035. And this is going to be in years. So you will get time as 5 years. And if it doesn't come out to be a nice number, then just round it to the next year, okay? All right, so now for compound interest, we are going to use this formula. The accumulated amount is your principal times 1 plus your rate divided by your compounding periods times and raised to the n times t power. So I'm going to just write this formula out. I have my principal of $100, 1 plus my rate is 0.03 divided by my n, and n is 4 since it's compounded quarterly, and it's raised to the n times t power, which is 4 times 3 years, or the 12th power. And that's how I would put it on my calculator, and make sure I'm raising it to the correct power. And then when I do that, it's going to ask me, for the accumulated amount, which is your A. So you're going to have $109.38. And some of you rounded incorrectly, would round that to 40. So make sure that you always have 2 decimal places after your decimal point. Okay. Now this one, compounded daily, N is 360, and your power is 360 times 12. And so when I do 360 times 12, I get 4,320. So my accumulated amount is $700 as my principal. 1 plus my rate is 3%. My N is 360, and my power is 4,320. And so when I do all those calculations, I am going to get $1,003.32. Now, present value uses the same formula with one exception. So this one is my present value is what I want to get, my accumulated amount, 1 plus R over N to the negative NT power. So let's substitute in. I want $26,000. That's my A. 1 plus my rate, 0.033%. My N is compounded semi-annually, which is 2, raised to the negative 2 times 11 years, or negative 22. And so when I do that, I will get $18,737.88. And that's going to finish up chapter 10.